There are many ways to be an herbalist. What is your idea of who an herbalist is and what an herbalist does?
I guess the simple answer for me would be just if you're using herbs intentionally for your own health and for your family's health. We actually asked this question for our Ask an Herbalist series as well. And it's been fun to hear the different answers that herbalists give. And I believe it was Howie Brownstein said something like, you're an herbalist when people start coming to you for advice on health issues related to herbs. I really like that. And then I think it was Logan Keister. He kind of differentiated between herbalist and clinical herbalist. Those two things are definitely different. That might come more along the lines of what Howie was saying, as far as like, are people coming to you with their health issues on a regular basis? Then you might be more considering yourself a clinical herbalist. My brother, multiple years ago said, Mason, you're an herbalist. And I was kind of uncomfortable with that title because I never really considered myself an herbalist, which is funny because I run an herbalism website and all that, and I've studied and all this, but I always kind of associated, if you're an herbalist, that means you're a clinical herbalist. But I don't necessarily believe that anymore. I think it's as simple as, are you using herbs for your own health and for your family's health?
So 2 questions. What is your definition of an herbalist, just in general? And then how would you describe yourself? Like, how would you describe your herbalism? Or this might be the same questions, but.
Oh, I think herbalist has, there's many tiers to that as well. Someone who is engaged with learning the medicinal properties of plants, but that could be someone who is a backyard herbalist just for themselves. That could be like they're the family herbalist, so they're making blends for their family, their aunt, things of that sort. Then we move more into like a community herbalist who's focused on their immediate community, maybe initially pretty small, just people they know, working with people they know, offering in that way, or maybe on a larger scale into their community. And then we have more clinical herbalists too. And generally I find a clinical herbalist actually has done those other steps. They've courted the plants. They've watched those interactions between plants and people. They've worked with people that they're more intimate with so that they actually are getting, hopefully, a more direct conversation with them about how the plants are affecting them. Because sometimes with clients, they're not always giving you as much information, but if it's someone that lives in your house, then like, I gave them this and I did see these changes. Or if it's a good friend and they're like, that gave me headaches. Oh, well, that's the opposite effect. So just more information to get so that when they're a clinical herbalist, they have a better understanding of the diverse potentials that plants might have for different individuals and what's going on for them. So, I think there's a variety of ways someone could be an herbalist, and or it can be someone who's mostly like a kitchen herbalist, and so they're really diverse with their spices. Maybe they're growing their herbs in pots in their apartment, and so that's as much as they have, but then they're really working with those in their kitchen, and they've even looked at the medicinal properties and healing benefits of a lot of those spices, because many of those are in our diet and are very aromatic because they're so healing. So maybe that as well. Yeah.
So what is your idea of who an herbalist is, and what does an herbalist do?
I don't know if it's your mission statement, but like your mission statement, there's, very many different types of herbalists and different ways that herbalists manifest their lifestyle and career, as unique as each individual. You could be a clinical herbalist, you could be a traditional herbalist, you could be a community herbalist, you could be a medicine maker, a grower, a botanist, not to mention all the other sort of branches of herbalism like aromatherapy and flower essences, plant spirit medicine. So I feel like my definition of an herbalist is someone who lives in relationship with plants. and which sort of reminds me of James Green, also one of my go-to authors, herbal authors. He talks about honeybees being the world's premier herbalists. And I'm also a beekeeper, and I like to infuse, I consider honey a medicinal herb and like to utilize the alchemy of honey with plants. But, they have this symbiotic relationship with plants, right? Honeybees, obviously, they coexist together and they nurture each other and they benefit each other. And so I feel like that's what an herbalist does as well. They cohabitate, appreciate, utilize, and serve plants, really. So, sometimes I feel like my days and weeks and months in life are sort of dictated by the needs of plants or at least my projection of what plants need, right? So I go out and I think this plant needs to be watered, or this plant needs to be pruned, or this plant needs to be talked to or made into medicine. And maybe it doesn't need any of that, and I'm just but yeah, I like to think that I'm helping them and we're helping each other. It's a symbiotic relationship. So I feel like that is the general idea of what an herbalist does. If you're wanting, a more, a less esoteric maybe answer. Yeah.
Just your, your take on it. That's, there's no right or wrong answer. That's a lovely description of what an herbalist is and what an herbalist does. I mean, I keep, I only have like 3 plants on my porch because that's all I can take care of. I'm like, I don't want to, have more plants and then not be able to take care of them. And then this lady girl, she moved out downstairs. I've got 4 apartments in my little building, and she left this big plant on the porch, and it's this lovely, I don't actually know what kind of plant it is, and it looks kind of like it could be a tropical plant, but it's a vine and it's growing up, and I'm like, who's watering this plant? So I'm like watering it. I'm like, I cannot, I'm making sure that I was like, I don't think anyone's watering. All right, we'll just water it. And
they're dictating your day.
I started taking over the care of this plant. Yeah. I can't. So what you said definitely makes sense to me, and I resonates with me, and I think that.
And that's a good point you bring up too. Is you don't necessarily need to have a bunch of land with a bunch of plants to be in that relationship.
That's true
as well. A few porch plants or potted plants are great. And also, if you have access to, going on hikes or even just, parks or even just little side vacant lots, you got dandelions coming up and, in the winter you have pine trees everywhere. And so there are, plants everywhere that you can connect with and create relationships with, really, wherever you are.
Definitely. I mean, I'm in, I'm close to downtown Asheville, and literally everyone's yard is overflowing with echinacea and yarrow, and there's mugwort sort of randomly, and just little pops of goldenrod and just lemon balm and mullein and rosemary, and
awesome.
Just growing, in people's gardens, and it's surprisingly, I'm surprised at the amount of maybe it's because of Asheville, and we love plants more than we love grass. We'll have that manicured lawn, but and you can tell people who know what plant it is, because this house by me, they had this comfrey, just a whole bunch of it growing under their trees in the front yard, and they mowed them down and mulched them over, and I'm like, okay, they don't know what that is. And then there's, another house down the road, and there's a whole big patch of it just there, like, and close to their garden. So it's just, but yeah, there's plants everywhere, which is cool. So they're words. It's sort of like they make it easy for us to notice them, and then to us to engage with them. So they're just like, we're here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Pay attention, whether you're like, in the city or in the country. It's just really cool. So yeah. Heather says from the chat, herbal lushness.
Right.
So yes, that's a good. Is just kind of broadly, or what is your idea of who an herbalist is and what an herbalist does? Just like kind of the function.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's loosely, essentially, you could say it's somebody who possesses knowledge of and actively works with plants and plant materials, but kind of beyond just an ornamental use or even just a food garden. You're starting to get more into how the plants can help heal internally, topically, and different applications thereof. It's getting into a little bit more nitty gritty, which kind of creates a little bit more of an intimate relationship with the plants, so to speak. And I mean, I would even say, as appropriate for your show's title here, is that herbalists are sort of storytellers for the earth in a way, because it's about keeping a knowledge alive and passing it along and sharing it so that it doesn't get lost. And that is storytelling in a way that helps enrich human lives and keep us more connected with the earth,
Yeah, we're sort of advocating and speaking for the plants.
I feel like an herbalist is also a caretaker. And it's really something that out of all the herbalists I've ever been around and met, they all have that same common trait, that they are caretakers of the plants. And they're either tending their own gardens, they're either tending their own apothecary, they're tending their herbs with their community. So they're all caretakers, and that's what they're doing. And that's kind of what I feel like I do, because I started off being a caretaker of my family,
right,
and then kind of branched out. And for several years, I just made things for people, and I enjoyed the making medicine part. And I feel like that really hit my tending drive for being an herbalist. And I enjoy that part. I enjoy taking care of things. And I think a lot of herbalists do.